Welcome to Probate Weekly. I'm Bill Gross, the LA Probate expert, and this is our Probate Weekly live cast. We do it every week on Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time, 7 p.m. Eastern, but today we do it 6 p.m. Central time. Special guest coming to us from the great state of Texas. We have a probate attorney who really does business, knows her stuff. I've interviewed her before, as well as her partner in crime, or partner in law, I guess I should say, Lena Cervara. Lena, welcome to our call today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Lena, give us a little background. Where'd you grow up, and then how'd you end up in the probate field in Houston, Texas?
So I am originally from Buffalo, New York, upstate New York, and I moved down to Florida where I went to law school. Met my husband in Florida, so he's from Texas, so he forced me to come here. And I ended up liking it. I do like Texas. It's different from what I'm used to, but really, I originally didn't want to do probate. I actually originally wanted to do immigration, and then I started testing out the waters with probate and estate planning, and I ended up loving it.
Wow. So from Buffalo, New York, Bills fan?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Everybody from Buffalo is so intense a Bills fan.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get it this year.
Whew, okay, well look, things look good. Josh Allen looks like he's something special. And then you went to Florida. Where'd you go to law school in Florida?
Florida Coastal.
Coastal. And so he drags you to Texas, and here you are in law, and you're partnered with Bowen, right?
Yes, not partner yet, but shortly, hopefully, I will be partner.
I met partners and working together. I didn't mean to get into the legal aspect. Sorry about that.
Partner in crime, yeah. I mean, we work together very well. So
got it. So let's talk about probate a little bit. I know there's a spectrum here, and we have real estate agents around the country. There's a spectrum of probate from kind of the rough and tumble, low income, desperate, and then there's kind of more regular probate administration, and there's litigation, and there's estate planning to avoid probate. Where in that barometer do you work, or do you work all those parts?
I work all those parts. So I get everything from your basic, simple probate of a will, no contest, executor named in the will, very straightforward, to, an heirship proceeding where, there's unknown heirs and we're searching everywhere for it, to highly contested. One person is claiming that it's a forged will. So, I deal with everything.
So do you actually do, when there is litigation, the objections and discovery and the trial and that part of it?
I do. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
And personally, I would think that makes you a better, more effective attorney, because if you see what the effective mistakes are, then you're going to seek to avoid those problems when you write documents on the planning side, no?
Oh, yeah, of course. And like I said, I see a lot of wills that were done not by me, but from other attorneys that were I'm actually dealing with one right now. It was written horribly, and the attorney ended up messing something up because of it. It had the client do an executor's deed to someone that it shouldn't have been to, just because of the language of the will that was very unclear. So yeah, that just shows me that for my estate planning, to make sure to make everything very clear, cut and clear, because honestly, the best wills are the basic wills. A lot of people think that, you want to have 20-page wills, but really the best ones are the short 4 to 5 pages. That's it.
So quick inventory. Have you seen the movie Body Heat?
I haven't.
So that's about a will in Florida, and I'm sure the laws are different from state to state, but about whether or not it's witnessed properly, and if not witnessed properly, intestate, and what that means. It's like a murder mystery centered on kind of a probate you might find interesting. And My Cousin Vinny.
Yeah, I have seen that one. Yeah.
I think that's required to get your bar license in most states, isn't it?
Yeah. So at my school, my professor for one of my classes for evidence, he told us all to watch it. So that's when I watched it. It was in law school.
So how realistic do you think it is? Obviously, it's a comedy, but how realistic is it as far as the issues of the kind of the feeling in court? Hold on 1 second here. The feeling in court and the judge being in control of things. Do you find that to be, obviously it's exaggerated. Do you think it's accurate, worthwhile for people to watch warrant attorneys?
For sure. I think it's definitely one of the, at least in my opinion, movies that does depict, the legal process. But of course, it's exaggerated. As all movies are.
Yeah, I really recommend to all the agents who, people who have been to court and wondered what it's like. Not that it's like that, but it's not that unlike that. That's what makes it a comedy, right?
Right.
Okay. So Good, we got that out of the way. So let's talk about, um, are you familiar with the laws of probate and estate planning in Texas versus other states? And are you aware of the differences between them? Or is your business exclusively Texas?
It's exclusively Texas. I mean, I've seen, of course, we do get wills sometimes from other states, and we can probate here in Texas. All we have to do is just make sure that the will meets the requirements of the will in that state. So we would just have to, show the judge the statute and show that it does meet the requirements. But aside from that, I don't really know too much. I just know Texas.
And so if people own property in other states, though, then you have to refer it out to an attorney to do a separate probate there for that property, or do you get involved in that at all?
Yeah, so I don't know how it works in other states, but I know in Texas, if someone, let's just say their principal state is somewhere else, but then they have property in Texas, we can do an ancillary proceeding, which is basically just like a small, not a full-blown probate, but you would basically transfer the will here and prove that they were appointed there. And it's usually a pretty quicker process than a full-blown probate.
So let's talk a bit about kind of the process, because I think California is the most regulated, difficult, administrative-heavy state as far as probate process. Some say the worst, so the most involved. And I think a lot of people told me that Texas is one of the lighter states to work in. So if in a basic case, if a husband and wife pass away, and there's, let's say, only one heir, one child, what's the process for the property to pass from the parents to the child? Is it probate if there's a will? Does a will avoid probate? How does that work?
So if there's a will, then obviously it's whoever's named in the will. But if there's no will, then you would do an heirship. And typically if there's a spouse and a child, it's just depending on if the child is is also the child of the surviving spouse, then all the community property, everything's going to go to the surviving spouse. However, if there's at least one child that's not a child of the surviving spouse, then it completely changes things. So that would be where the surviving spouse only gets her share of the community property. That means if they own a house together, she only gets her 50% share, and then the other 50% goes to the children. So it completely changes things if there is at least one child from outside marriage.
And I think when probate laws were written, that was a very small minority exception case. And today, I think it's probably the majority or the largest percentage, if not overwhelming majority, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, correct.
So to go back a second, so let's imagine that there's just one child from mom and dad. There's no will at all. How does the title get changed? If they want to go sell the property, they don't need probate, but they just provide a death certificate, or is there an affidavit that they provide, or how do they actually go to title to get the title changed from mom and dad and the right to sell the property?
So like I said, it depends on if we do a probate, so here you open up a probate when there's a need for administration. So that's going to be like, aside from selling the property, you need to access bank accounts, stuff like that. Let's just say there's only a property and the person doesn't have a will and there's no other assets or no debts or nothing to actually administer. Then you could do what's called an affidavit of heirship. And that basically you would have two disinterested witnesses basically sign to the facts of who the heirs are, and then you would get that recorded with the county clerk. And then that should be enough for them to sell the property. Yeah,
we do that in California for small probates, like bank accounts, but we can't do that with real property. So that's a big difference.
Yeah.
In Texas, also, if you have a will in Texas, does that avoid probate, or does that still have to go to court to be probated?
It depends. I mean, a will for me, I always say have a will as your backup. But I mean, there is ways to still avoid probate. So that's going to be, having all your assets with designated beneficiaries. So, your 401k, your life insurance, even bank accounts, you can have payable on death beneficiaries. Transfer on death deeds, that's where you can actually, or a ladybird deed. So you can actually transfer your house to a beneficiary upon death. So if you get all that in place, you can avoid probate. And your will is just going to basically be for your other little things that don't really need to go through the probate court, your personal items, that sort of thing.
So with some basic planning in Texas, it's pretty easy, it sounds like, to avoid probate. So let's assume, though, obviously, at least half the people don't do anything at all, and discover there's a problem. So in those cases, on a standard case, the kids pass and have a will, they just do an affidavit and it doesn't have to go through court confirmation or a full probate process. They can just transfer title right away.
Typically, when there's a will, you do still go through probate, but again, it really depends on what kind of assets are in place, what kind of debt there is. We have something that's also called Immunement of Title in Texas, and that's essentially, it's a way more quicker and more cost-effective probate process. So you're still going through the court, but basically Immunement of Title is when there is a will and there's only a property that really needs to be transferred title to. There's no other assets that need to be accessed. You can't, you have to confirm that the decedent didn't receive Medicaid benefits because they could have a claim against the estate. So they would sign an affidavit swearing that there was no Medicaid, no debts, and then it basically is a small court proceeding that allows them to transfer the property without opening a full administration. So that's usually what I would recommend to someone who has a will. There's really only a house, nothing else, and that's going to be a more cost-effective option.
Got it. Okay, hey, let's take a quick break here just for everybody on the call. This is meant to be participative. I do these calls because I like to talk to and learn from experts in the business. I'm glad to have that opportunity. I appreciate having Lena here, but it's also for you guys. So if you want to ask a question, feel free. You can hit the raise the hand on the Zoom application or put a question in the chat box, starting with the letter Q is best. You can unmute yourself. That just gets a little iffy because there's background noise. I might cut you off thinking that you're a troublemaker, but I'd love to have you participate. And what I know is the more you participate, the more value you get out of this. And I also know that cameras on and being able to participate will help you get the most value and the most learning. We do have a large crowd today. I think we have 75 on and still people coming in. So feel free. We'll do an occasional shot of the whole camera just to get everybody on. Everybody who's on the camera, wave your hand, say hi. There you go. So we'll do a little family, group stuff. Great. So feel free to jump in if you have questions. If you're watching this live on the live stream on YouTube or Facebook, feel free to put questions in the chat box and our comments, and I'm monitoring those as we do this call. And if we don't get to afterwards, I'll definitely get back to you. I saw one hand up. Was that Vincent? And then he popped away. You there still, Vincent?
Hi, Bill.
Hey, what's up?
Yeah, I have a question. So the question, from real estate standpoint, I mean, how do people invest in probate?
Great question. So let me bring you in here. Oops, did that wrong. Add spotlight. Hold on just one second here. So Lena, how often do you get involved in dealing with, in probate with investors or the sale of property? How often is that part of the process that you're involved with?
Sometimes, I mean, not too often, to be honest with you. But I mean, it does happen. I do get a lot of emails or people reach out to me trying to see, if, trying to inquire about the property, but it's not as often. A lot of times the heirs are going to be keeping the property. That's what I've seen, or just sell it real quick. I mean, it doesn't happen too often, but it does happen.
And so I know it seems like there's two styles of attorneys in probate as far as real estate. Some, the real estate is brought to them by an investor or a real estate agent. Other ones work with when I say the retail side, they work with petitioners and they happen to have real estate or don't have real estate. So it sounds like most of your business is more from petitioners and family side rather than having investors or realtors bring you these transactions?
Yeah, we sometimes get them, but for the most part, I mean, we do work with, a few real estate agents, one that specializes actually in probate. I mean, she advertises that she specializes in probate real estate and stuff. But yeah, I mean, and so far it hasn't been too much yet where investors were involved.
Right. And again, I think just to answer Vince's question, I think it really is more their business model is more reaching out to the market, to the community, and to consumers versus, and the purpose of this phone call is to educate real estate agents, investors, and wholesalers to look for these deals. When you discover there's a problem with the title, that's probably a probate solution, and then you can bring it to an attorney. And Lena and her fellow attorney at the firm, Bowen law firm, Bo, can help unwind the problem. So if you, Vince, are you a real estate agent or an investor?
I'm an investor.
And where do you do business?
I just started, so still learning.
What state do you live in? Or
in California.
Got it. So she's in Texas, and the reason why we do these calls is also to the principles are the same. I think we're going to talk a little bit about her business as well. And so while in her case, she's not necessarily working directly with realtors or investors, though I'm sure she would love any real estate agents who have clients who are in probate to bring them to Lena, and she'll make sure you get the real estate, or at least support your business that way. That's not her focus. There are other attorneys who that is their focus. I'm trying to make her focus by exposing her to you guys, and hopefully you'll.
Yeah, and that's why we're here.
Exactly, that's why she's here, and why Bo was here previously, because they recognize the opportunity, and I think I appreciate the opportunity of working with us as investors and realtors. So, good question, Vincent. I would say in her case, we also want to learn though the process, because it's not enough just to say, "Oh, my client needs to go to probate," and dump it on Lena's door and run away. We want to be involved and learn how the process works to keep the relationship with our prospect through the process. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure, thank you. Thanks so much. Okay, so what do I want to talk a little bit about was kind of the business side. What do you do, if anything? I mean, maybe business just comes at you, but what do you do any business development? And if you do, what kind of business development things do you do?
We do a lot of, we try and market by doing a lot of videos. We did actually a presentation, and we got with Edward Jones, and we got with some financial advisors. We got with a tax attorney, and we kind of did like presentations, open for the public, provided food for them, kind of explaining estate planning, probate, the process, and then the others would get into like the financial planning. So we kind of tie in, all different aspects so that people have a good, an idea of what to expect and what they should do for their future. So we do a lot of that. Bo likes to make a lot of commercials, which that's helped a lot. Just kind of getting out there and, start networking. We're starting to do that a lot more than we did in the past, and I think it's helping.
Great. So let's talk a little bit about the estate planning side, right? The probate is, if you don't plan ahead, unfortunately, oftentimes you find yourself in probate court. Estate planning is thinking about, well, I don't want to end up there, but more importantly, I want to leave directions for how my life is handled if I'm incapacitated, God forbid, and or after I'm gone. So let's talk about that. Do you offer estate planning services, and what does that look like typically?
Yeah, we do. Usually, I always recommend getting the whole package. So our whole package is going to be your basic will, your durable statutory power of attorney, your medical power of attorney, your basic HIPAA release, your appointment for disposition of remains. That's going to be where you decide if you want to be cremated, or your burial instructions, whatever the case may be. And then we also do the appointment for a declaration of guardian in the event a guardianship is needed. And then we do the revocable transfer on death deed. And that's what I explained a little bit earlier. That's a deed where you would transfer it to a beneficiary. You get it recorded. It has to be recorded before you die. So we typically do it right when they sign it, but it doesn't take effect until after they pass. And that's going to avoid the probate. So that whole package we usually do. And it's been really effective. People like it a lot.
Very nice. And so I'm curious, what does an estate planning package look like typically, or the range, and how does that compare with the attorney's fees and the fees of probate if you don't have a estate plan?
You're talking about like the price range, what we charge typically? Yeah. So the basic package, and again, that's it depends really, because some people want to trust, and of course trust is very costly to get set up. But your basic package of everything that I included is usually starts around $1,200 to $1,500 for everything. But then again, like I said, it depends on the client's needs, how large their estate is, what we're doing, how many properties we're going to be doing the revocable transfer on death deeds for, because of course there's filing fees charged for every deed that we do. So like I said, it just really depends.
Nice. And then, so how does that compare with if I don't do estate planning, I end up in probate court, I need to hire an attorney, there's filing fees and publication fees and such. What does that cost by comparison?
So, you're going to pay for probate regardless, having a will or not having a will. But, having a will, it's a lot more cost effective, maybe between around 4-ish, 4,000 or 5,000. But ones without a will that don't do estate planning, and we're in the situation, like I said before, where we're trying to locate heirs and have to even locate heirs in different countries, different states. I currently am trying to subpoena the Army to see if there was records of child support, because we're getting conflicting information that the decedent had children or not. So you're talking that's going to cost you, I mean, a lot more money. I mean, a lot more money.
Yeah, it seems to me just in general, you're talking 4 to 5 times as much if you don't plan
yeah.
ahead as if you do plan ahead.
Way more. And like I said, and then, you know, you're talking that you don't get to decide who's going to get your stuff. And I have a lot of clients who specifically want to disinherit certain family members. And guess what? You can't do that if you don't have a will. So now, you know, someone who you might not want to get your stuff is going to inherit. And that's unfortunate.
Right. Let's talk about it for somebody who's not passing but incapacitated, because that happens. People are living longer and that becomes more of an issue. Do you see issues of competency coming up where people, you know, want to do something, but, you know, family member says, hey, they're not really competent to sell their house, or, you know, the housekeepers or the caregivers taking advantage? Are you seeing more and more of those types of issues, or is that just a California thing?
No, it's here too. And I see a lot of where the opposite of what you're saying, actually the person's coming in, the children are saying, I want to get a power of attorney for my mom and give me a power of attorney. So I go meet the mom and she has no idea what's going on. And I turn them away. Like, I'm not going to have her sign something where she doesn't understand. And at that point, you would have to go through a guardianship to, you know, because a power of attorney is not going to be valid if they're not competent to sign one. And that brings another thing to another good point for estate planning is, you know, we do provide the power of attorneys in place. So if you get it before they're incapacitated, it survives capacity. So that means once they're incapacitated, your power of attorney still is valid. However, but if they try and come after they're incapacitated, guess what? You can't get it. And now you have to go through court and it's going to be a lot more expensive. Right.
You can't, just to summarize, you can't appoint somebody to be your attorney if you don't have the capacity to make those decisions on your own.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In Texas, if you have a power of attorney, does that terminate with the death of the party, or does it survive as well?
No, it terminates with the death. So then your executor appointed in the will or administrator, if there's no will, would have to take care. And I have a lot of people come in and say, well, I'm power of attorney. The banks won't let me access.
Exactly.
Like, well, they're passed away. It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I think everybody has to understand, or you know, if you've been involved with this, you have clients who call you and say two things. One is the banks froze the account. Yeah, because they know somebody passed, they have a social security number, and they immediately freeze all accounts with that person's social security number. And then second, but I have a power of attorney, but they're passed. So the power of attorney, you're the attorney for a person who passed. You're not an attorney for a person who's living anymore. So that's for a lot of people a very rude awakening.
And a lot of people don't understand that, you know, even spouses, if you're not a joint account holder on the account, I have spouses that say, well, that's my husband. I was able to access that account before. Well, it doesn't work the same way once they pass, unfortunately. It's
unfortunate. And I've seen cases where spouses, more commonly women, but doesn't have to be, who for years the husband took care of all the finances and he has all the records and he had, you know, his name's on the checking account and you can't even get access to the account, let alone to get the records. I had one where I had one where they weren't even formally married, and one party was incapacitated, and they're trying to find an insurance package they bought for this purpose. They couldn't find the records. They knew they're paying the premium, but they couldn't access the checking account because she wasn't a spouse and didn't have power of attorney on the account. So a lot of these things, everything works. Nothing's a problem until it's a problem, and then it's a problem at that point. So that's why we have attorneys and courts and all that stuff. Okay, let's now get a couple questions here in the chat box. Mark Pedrosa says, if anybody's in Sacramento County, California, besides myself, for free probate leads, go to www.carmichaeltimes.com. Well, how about that, Mark? Thanks for pointing that out. Patrick Smith says, I'm in Florida and I just finished the Express Offers certification. Express Offers is a eXp Realty program that it's kind of like a platform for iBuyers. So most real estate agents have a platform they can bring, you know, property to. And probate, it's not common. The property is in tough shape, and so you can offer the family a cash offer. So he's saying, how can best probate be used as a great stream of property owners to help? And so Patrick's really asking, how often do families that say stand to inherit a property that maybe is in really rough condition and maybe beyond their ability to fix up and flip it to sell it at a profit, and maybe want to take a cash offer? Is that a common occurrence in your place? And what do you do with clients who come to you in that circumstance?
Yeah, I mean, I actually have a couple pieces right now that we're thinking about that, just because of, you know, it's going to cost them way too much money to try and fix it up, and it's just more easier for them. I have an out-of-state client who wants to sell her mom's property, and it's absolutely in horrible condition. And I mean, so I mean, that does happen, and we do get some offers, and we work with certain people, but again, it happens not as frequently with us right now, but I do have a couple that are like that.
Yeah, so I think it's a somewhat regular occurrence. Of course, a year or two ago, everybody was fixing up properties and selling them at a profit because the houses went up 20% per year. Everybody looked like a genius fixing up houses. And so they thought they made money by fixing it. They really made money by holding it. No town of theirs. Now, when the market's flat, or maybe in some markets even declining, holding the property vacant, carrying those expenses, and investing money, you're probably not going to get a return for your investment. And I tell most families, I'm glad to connect you with people who will, for low cost, fix it up, but you probably aren't going to get a return for your investment unless you're doing it at scale. The investors I know have 3 or 4 or 5 jobs at once and use that to keep their costs down. So a little different. Okay, so Joyce asked a question of a client whose husband passed away and he had a will. Do you still have to go to court? He had kids, but left everything to my client in the will, I presume. She wants to sell the property. Do we still need to go to court? So Joyce, it's important. What state is your client in?
Georgia.
So Lena practices law in Texas. I would say in California, I'm not an attorney, but in California, a will does not avoid probate court. In order to change the title, you go to probate court, and there's 2 lines. Think of it that way. There's the line with wills and without wills, but the will is effectuated in probate court in California, and so you really can't avoid it. So Lena, here you have a case where the husband passed away and had a will, and he wanted to, he had kids. I presume it means the wife passed away as well, but he left everything to some third. No,
the wife is still living. That's my client.
Oh, so he left everything.
Everything to my client.
To his wife.
Yes.
Is that his only wife?
Yes.
I mean, to me, it sounds like community property most likely, and normally things would go to her. In California, you'd go to probate court and file a petition and transfer it. And what happens in Texas? Husband passes, wife's alive. They have kids. He has a will. Everything goes to the wife. So I imagine you go to probate court to make that happen.
Yeah, correct. You would go to the probate court. Well, it's depending on what kind of assets do they have. I mean, because like I said earlier, there's different types of administrations. You can do, something that's smaller, the Immunement of Title, if we're just transferring the house. But if there's bank accounts that she needs to access, you can't do that without a will, without going through the court system and getting what's called a letter testamentary. So yeah, most likely if that's what she needs to do, she needs to access bank accounts, close certain accounts, sell the house, or transfer the title to the home, she's going to have to go to the probate court, at least here in Texas. I don't know about Georgia.
Okay, I think that's what's going to have to happen to you in Georgia. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
You might, I'm sorry, you might ask a Georgia attorney. And I think, Joyce, are you a real estate agent or investor? What do you do?
I'm an agent, real estate agent.
Yeah, what a nice question to ask a local attorney and try to create a relationship, and then bring that relationship to your client to say, I was just having coffee with or just talking to so-and-so, and as an attorney, they advised me that this is probably what you have to do, and give them a call and make that introduction. And so there's a chance to do that with a local attorney.
Gotcha.
And if you don't have an attorney, I know I have a partner on my team in Athens, and I know he knows.
And she's in Athens, as a matter of fact.
So be glad to make a connection with you there. I'm not sure that's convenient for you to list, or you were looking for somebody to refer to, but more importantly, I think he would have attorneys that would be appropriate for you to talk to, and then make that introduction.
Okay, and you said Athens. Do you have a referral?
I do. My partner, Paul Cook, is in Athens, Georgia. He's with me at eXp Realty. And let me put his in. Are you on the desktop? Can I put it in the chat box for you? Would that work?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Give me the boards. Paul's a great guy, and he has a book on probate and works with attorneys. He's a former pastor and just a really great guy. So I'm confident you'll be happy with him.
So do you know if, she started the process already. So she's thinking that maybe she can handle it herself, or would you recommend an attorney, or tell me?
So Lena, this is a good question. I know I have my opinion on this. Lena, so how often do you get people start on their own and get stuck in the mud?
Yeah, a lot. I wouldn't recommend it. So at least in Texas, and again, can't speak for Georgia, but there's requirements that the state makes you do, or they can remove you as executor. So there's certain things that you have to do after appointed. For example, you have to send a notice to creditors within 30 days, and there's a specific platform that you have to do it on. It's called the Daily Court Review in Texas, where it alerts creditors that the state's been probated. You have to notice the beneficiaries within 60 days. So there's certain requirements, and if you don't meet that, then the court can remove your status as executor, and yeah, there could be a lot of problems.
I can say the same thing in California, that most people just don't have the detail that it takes to get it through the process. That's why you need attorney. And I'll also say this, and I know it's somewhat controversial, but I used to go to court every day in Los Angeles, and I watch court proceedings for 2 or 3 hours a day. And I would say that fact, 90% of probate cases in LA County were handled by an attorney who did one probate case in the last 12 months or less. Number one. So that's a fact. And number two, I would say most attorneys would agree with me. About 80% of the attorneys, 80% of the cases are handled by attorneys who don't really know what they're doing. And it's evidenced by when they go into court and don't know about the systems and the procedures. And it's funny, they'll argue with the judge as to why they need to notice somebody or not. And like the judge is, watch my cousin Vinny, you don't argue with the judge. Yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And then, ask if you can talk to them. But, and I would watch it happen, that they'd make a classic mistake and then argue with the judge about whether they had to or not. In Texas, does that go over big with the judges? Do they like being argued with?
No, not at all. They can hold you in contempt too if you're not if you're not complying with court procedures and court rules.
Yeah. So I would definitely say that definitely people should get legal help, even if it's just a consult on where she is and some suggestions. I think their attorneys can do that and charge for a couple hours, but I think it's definitely worth it. And my guess is if you know about it, it means my experience is it means they're stuck in the mud, and you can kind of help them get going again. So that's the value. That's why I do this call. And I don't do it in Georgia, but I'm trying to create a national network where I have team members in key states as well as friends in key states to refer these things to, because I think rather than let your customers suffer by not knowing, let's get together with each other's agents and each other's attorneys and help our customers get through this.
Okay. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Appreciate it.
So Lena, going back to business development, great question from Cassandra. She's a notary in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Hey, Cassandra, welcome to a call. And she provides estate planning notarizations. So presumably your firm does estate planning documents, and then you need customers to notarize certain pieces of that. Do you have any tips on the best way to market her service to attorneys? I guess for those of us who are real estate agents, listen closely, it's some of the same principles. How should a notary, if you had a friend who is in the notary business or somebody's daughter is in the notary business or son, how would you recommend them to market themselves to attorneys like you to generate business?
Really just just reach out. To be honest with you, we don't really do that. We have 3 or 4 in-house notaries so we usually, and personally, we get our law clerks or paralegals, we get them, to get their notary license and stuff. So I'm not sure how others do it, but for the most part, I know a lot of law firms do have their, staff as notaries as well. But yeah, there are a lot of solo practitioners because obviously it's bad practice. You shouldn't, as an attorney, at least I won't notarize. For one, I'm not a notary, and 2, I would never recommend notarizing the documents that I'm drafting. So for solo practitioners, that might be something they would be wanting, is to have a notary that, is available for them when they need it. So I would just reach out to your local counsel and see, if they're interested.
I know personally, I feel like that's my, client-facing experience. I want the experience to be good. As a real estate agent, we have documents that need to be notarized by escrow. Sometimes the escrow handles it, but I like them to use my notary roster, because I want somebody who I know, and if there's a problem, they'll call me and I can walk the client through the question right away, and they'll tell me when they're done with it, so I can call the customer and make sure they're still happy. So I would say the best practice that I'm aware of, because just like Lena said, is you want to meet people, you want to network with them. Bowen Law Firm is a pretty good sized firm. You probably want to look for individual practitioners that don't have the staff that are notarized in-house. They need somebody to do it. They don't want to do it themselves, probably can't do it themselves. And so that would probably be your best bet, is to find those. And Do you have, Lena, do you guys have bar event, like networking events and bar, local Texas bar attorneys? I say bar, I don't mean going to a bar and drinking beer. I mean, I know you guys are doing that in Texas, but I mean, attorney groups, are you getting bar organization, networking events, social events, educational events? Are they open again?
We do, and actually a lot of times they are at bars. There's an upcoming one next Monday that I'm contemplating on going. But yeah, we get that a lot for sure. It's a good tool to just network and meet new people. And we, even for me as an attorney, like, we only practice, we don't practice everything. We don't do criminal law. We don't do certain types of law. So, we get to meet other attorneys as well. So that might be something she might want to consider. In what state is she in? What state?
She's in Virginia.
In Virginia, yeah. To kind of look on the state bar website to see what's going on in the Facebook group. At least in Texas, we have Facebook groups. They post on the website and all that when there's networking events and stuff.
And then you have local bar too. Like is there a Houston area bar that you're involved with, or is it just state events?
It's usually just like the state events, yeah.
Got it. Okay, good. So Joyce, I can refer you to a great attorney for future probate work in Atlanta. There you go. Jen can offer some help there as well. And do I have a contact in Florida? Patrick, I had a contact in Florida, and he didn't quite work out. And maybe you're the contact in Florida. So let's talk about that. And I think that Cassandra makes a point as far as a notary. She does it in the evenings, and then I think what the notaries I use are typically available in evenings and weekends, because that's when the in-house notaries may not want to do the jobs. And so, like anything else, you hustle and take the business other people don't want to do, and then you work your way into being the person that people want to work with. So, great. Okay, I think I caught up with everything on the chat box. I don't see anything or in the online stream. Anybody else have any questions? Raise your hand. Put a question in the chat box, and Patrick can go and chat. And Patrick Smith, you and I can also go back onto EXP Workplace and chat a little bit more. Okay, so let's see. Jim tells us that his dad's cousin played in the Buffalo Bills. I think you might want to know this, Lena. Eddie Rakowski. He played with Bob Dole's roommate, Jack Kemp. I met Jack Kemp, actually. And I think, where did Jack Kemp go to college? I'm trying to remember. He was a college football player as well. And he went to become the Erie County executive. Okay, so there you go. You Buffalo Bills fans, like, you just mentioned the Bills, and they crawl out of under rocks, it looks like.
Oh yeah, we're diehard fans. I mean, it's crazy.
So if I was a real estate agent, and I don't want is every real estate agent in Houston who sees this to call Lena tomorrow and invite her out to lunch or drinks or whatever, because she's nice enough to share with us. But if you had a friend who's a real estate agent, let's say in another state, and they wanted to build their real estate business by focusing in probate, they took the time to learn the rules, the laws, the procedures, they're going to create value for a law firm. What would you recommend for them to build their practice to working with attorneys where they can maybe earn referrals? Obviously, one answer is we'll bring business in to refer, and we try to talk about that. What else besides that would you recommend?
Really, I mean, kind of like I said before, go to the networking events, schedule meetings, that sort of thing. I mean, one of the probate specialists, realtor that I just met recently, that was just from, honestly, she saw us, or something along the lines where she saw us, went to our website, and then actually reached out to us and to see if we would be interested in meeting. And we said, yeah, absolutely. So honestly, it's really just reaching out, maybe networking and stuff like that, where I'm always open to, network with others or meet others and discuss business with them. And so is Bo. I mean, he does that. He does it way more than I do. Of course, he's the owner of the firm, but we do it on a weekly basis.
Yeah. I would say hungry dogs hunt best. And so when you find somebody's marketing, that means they're out looking for business and they appreciate business you bring to them. So
of course, yeah.
In general, my experience has been that almost any attorney, this is more true of older attorneys, and I'm always a little cautious as a man calling a female attorney because I don't want to cross any wires or give the wrong impression. But in general, that aside, my experience is almost any attorney that you call and invite to lunch, not to pound them for referrals or slit their throat with your business card, but to meet them or learn about something, most attorneys are open to that. Is that common for you as well?
Correct. Very common. Like I said, between Bo and I, we probably on a weekly basis, we're meeting with individuals who want to reach out to discuss business. And it's always, discussing it over lunch.
Right.
And, we kind of breaks the ice a little bit. We get to know each other, and then we start discussing business and see how we can help each other, really.
Yeah. We still can't quite do that in Los Angeles because we're a little more COVID, whatever all that is about. So if I was to call an attorney for lunch today, I think they'd think I'm crazy unless they knew their politics and it was okay. And I just want to get into all that. Yeah, in LA still, a lot of the restaurants just aren't up to speed, and no, it's not like it used to be. It used to be pre-COVID, I had my favorite restaurant for business. They were very business oriented, and I would, make 5 appointments a week, 3 or 4 would show up, and it was a classic business lunch. Today, you just really can't. There are people who will, but as a general rule, you'll get some push. You have to be a little careful. And attorneys, I think, I don't know what it is about it specifically, but where I live, attorneys are more, because they skew older. Maybe they skew a little more to the left than the right. I don't really know but I'm just saying I wouldn't invite an attorney in Beverly Hills, Los Angeles to lunch. Let's say knew they're going out to business lunches ahead of time, just because I think it reflect poorly on me. I think they'd feel I'm being less than responsible just for what that's worth. And I think also, well, you tell me, maybe it's more in LA. I think everybody got very comfortable on Zooms and being in their office and on phone calls, and like nobody wants to go out to stuff. It's a different vibe. Are things back to normal in Texas or in Houston area, or are you still somewhat kind of semi-lockdown mode?
No, it's very much back to normal. However, when it comes to the courts and stuff and hearings, it is very nice. And we do prefer to still remain on Zoom. I mean, for one, we're saving the client a lot of money because just to get to the courthouse alone, for us is a good 30 minutes plus, having to park and all that. So it definitely makes it easier. In Harris County, that's primarily where I practice. I mean, I'm in other counties as well, but Harris County is still all about Zoom. So I rarely have to leave. But there are other counties in Texas, like Montgomery County or Waller County, that they're back in person. Yeah. Which is fine, but like I said, with the court stuff, it's still done being Zoom, but everything else, like social activities and stuff, everybody goes out. Nobody even thinks about COVID anymore. Yeah, no, I was in Dallas 2 weeks ago, and it was like, like before, right? It was just normal. It's normal. But totally normal, 100% normal. Mm-hmm. But that event couldn't happen in Los Angeles. There's no way. Do you guys still wear masks and stuff if you do go out? No. People do. Some people do. I mean, it's, again, we don't have, like I was in a convention where we had 5,000 people in the room, and maybe in Dallas, and we had maybe 10 or 20 people were wearing masks. We don't have convention events in LA with 5,000 people. They just don't allow it. It's just, they allow the football games. We had at SoFi Stadium, nobody wears masks, or basketball and such. But business meetings, you just don't see those conventions like you would see in the past. So I know there was an event at LA Convention Center last week. I'm not sure how well attended it was, but my sense is it's still just different here in LA. And I don't know. I don't know if it's ever going to change or go back. It's really interesting. But again, not trying to get the politics, but I do think you have to be sensitive to making a good impression, and whether people are right or wrong. I don't want to offend them, and I don't want them to think I'm offensive. So it's important that we try to understand where people are and meet them at the right spot. Okay, real quick, selfless promotion here. Just a couple things I want to throw in real quick. I have a program we launched actually, getprobate.cash, and that's to teach how to use the advance of proceeds from a probate. There are companies will advance clients' money for attorney's fees, expenses, mortgage payments, taxes, and such. And it's a way for you to generate and build your business if you're a realtor investor. So on Wednesday at 8:30 a.m. Pacific, if you're interested in signing up for it or more information, go to getprobate.cash, not getprobate.com, but getprobate.cash. And I do a 30-minute presentation. And then those who are interested, I'm organizing a mastermind on that topic to go real deep so we can teach our attorneys, teach our investors, and teach petitioners how they can use this money to their benefit, not rip them off, but to use it for their benefit. So love to have you join there. And I'll put those details in the chat box. And then additionally, we have a free Facebook group if you're interested. Great place to ask questions if you have leads. I know Bo's in there all the time. I think maybe you as well, Lena. In Facebook, there's a group called Probate Experts. I put the link in the chat box. Free to join. We have 1,400 members. I say nationwide, but we also have had people from the UK go in there, attorneys in the UK. I think they call them
barristers, or there's another word they use as well. So, but anyhow, people go in and have questions about how do I, get this property in my name? How do I sell it? Great place to participate. Love to have you go there. And again, that's free and no cost. Okay, so look, Lena, I really enjoyed talking to you. So I could talk to you for hours. Anybody else has questions? Jump in, ask questions, and raise your hand. So, what do you say to attorneys who? I mean, I know you guys, as a firm, you do basically probate related stuff, right? You do some family law, you do personal injury, and you do estate law. And how many members are in your firm?
So for attorneys, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 attorneys, and then we have paralegals, law clerks, stuff like that.
And what always concerns me is when somebody says, "Oh, I'm in probate," and I ask who the attorney is, and I go online, and that attorney has the same website as you: family law, personal injury, state law, DUI, criminal law, bankruptcy law. I think, well, how can anybody do all this stuff? What do you recommend to young attorneys who are starting out? It sounds like you're in a fairly narrow niche, and it's related pieces. Was that by choice? Did somebody give you that advice? And what advice do you give young attorneys starting out as far as where they should specialize or should they specialize?
I mean, really, it's I would say start with what you're interested in, but don't just end it there, because you might find that you're better in something else. Like I said before, I initially wanted to do immigration. Before that, I went to criminal law, and I landed a job with the Bowen law firm. And I kind of, and Bill, I actually don't just do probate and estate planning. I do guardianship, I do civil litigation, I do contracts. I do a lot of different things. So, and I like it. I like being well-versed. I like being able to not just focus in one area of law. I like to do a lot of different things. So I would just say to other younger attorneys, don't just put all your eggs in one basket. I would venture out and explore different things, because it's really nice to be well-versed in different areas.
That said, how important is it for you to have a couple of colleagues around to help you, as opposed to being a sole practitioner in those cases? When you get outside, let's say, what you're most comfortable with, does it help you to have other attorneys there? Is that important?
It is, because a lot of times, every day, even though I've been doing probate for a long time, every day I come across a new obstacle of something that I've never experienced before. So we kind of discuss it together, we brainstorm together, and it's really helpful for me to have that there and have that available for me, rather than just trying to, I still figure it out on my own, but at the same time, you're having other attorneys to kind of feed off of, to give you ideas, to brainstorm. And I personally like that.
I gave a presentation, a quick pitch on a program I'm doing on advanced inheritances or probate advances, mislabeled probate loans or not loans. Do you come across that product? Is that something you get involved with?
No, and I would like to hear more about that, just because of the fact that I do have a lot of clients who, have hardships and they can't pay for it. And, there's a lot of money coming into it once they probate the estate, but obviously until that time comes, they have to front it themselves. So I actually just was talking to Bo about trying to, venture out into getting more information on that for those clients.
I got to tell you, this is an area that I've really, I'm seeking to really become an expert in. I've tried to identify every company in the country that does it. Interesting how many are not in the business. You find them, they did a couple, they're no longer there, who the major players are, what the rules are. But I've been doing it. I've been doing about 3 or 4 of those a year, where a client comes to me and they can't get an attorney because, they don't have the money for the fees or the expenses, and the attorneys sometimes, there are attorneys who will take it all in contingency. In California, there's a statutory limit that's pretty high, and so they'll charge them more at the end. And there's a way they can advance the fees and shop and get a better and more appropriate attorney, maybe geographically appropriate, Spanish speaking if necessary, whatever they need, or add some additional cash, maybe for move out money, maybe lock the house down, put a fence up, pay taxes, pay mortgage payments. So I'd love to talk to you about that. That's something I'm looking to build, and I'd love to find somebody in the Houston area to work with me on that. I'm running this getprobate.cash program to kind of sign up a group of affiliates in the different markets we work with and bring that service to the attorneys we work with as well. So I'd love to talk to you guys about that if you're interested.
Yeah, we would love that, because we're a decent sized firm, but not large enough to be able to do contingencies, unfortunately. So yeah, something like that is something we would be really interested in, because I hate to turn clients away just because they don't have the funds, outright to move forward. So
Yeah, and you don't have to. Really, you can have an intake form, and usually we'll get an answer back within 24 hours. We can say yes or no. Especially if we know who the attorney is, if it's going to be you guys, because we like to advance the money to the law firm, not to the individual, to cover the legal fees and the money. And then sometimes we'll give the customer an additional amount. So the most common number in California is about $10,000, and maybe $5,000 will go to the firm, and maybe $5,000 to the customer. They have expenses, mortgage payment, taxes. They just want some money in advance and such. So yeah, I'd love talking about that.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's see. The question is it a podcast or Zoom? It's a live Zoom like this. I do record it and put it on my YouTube channel. So if you guys are interested, on Wednesday, 8:30 a.m., getprobate.cash. Question: California is one of the few states where attorneys make a commission on the sale of the state's assets. Does they do better if the state assets sell for more? Can you confirm? So Jim, that's not true actually. The attorneys' fees are based on, they're capped. The statutory limit is on, there's a percentage that works up to about $23,000 on $1 million estate based on assets, and the assets aren't net but gross. So if you have $1 million house with $800,000 mortgage, it's $1 million in assets. The attorneys cannot charge more than, in that case, $23,000, but you can negotiate less. And a lot of attorneys don't like to say that, but that is the reality. It's a competitive business like most are, and oftentimes can be a lot less. Lena, how does the commission or the legal fee work in Texas? Is it capped based on the assets, and how is it determined?
So I'm not too sure when it comes to the estate stuff. I know for contingency, it's typically the norm is like 33% here, sometimes a little bit more, but for estates and stuff, to be honest with you, we don't do that. So I'm not 100% sure.
And on a probate though, is there a standard, is there a fee set by the state, or you can charge whatever you want?
Yeah, I mean, so it depends. So for an independent administration, yeah, I mean, you can charge whatever you want because the client is the executor, is accepting to it, and independently, the court doesn't get involved. But actually for a dependent administration, there is, and that's, I think you guys call it limited authority or something. And but for a dependent administration, yeah, they actually only allow you to charge. They don't allow you to charge for like administration expense, like administration fees. Like that's, regular, like, emails, that kind of stuff. So there's certain things they let you, the court allows you to charge for, and there's certain things they don't. And honestly, they have a whole spreadsheet on the court website of what they do and what they don't allow you to charge for. So we try to avoid those ones because those are the ones where they really do get involved when it comes to the fees and stuff. Yeah,
and to Jim's question, I would say that my experience with attorneys is the reason why they want to sell the house for more is not that they make more attorney's fees, though I think at the end they can, depending on how they negotiate. They're capped at a certain number. Oftentimes they agree to a fixed amount. So more commonly, I find attorneys will say they'll charge, say, $10,000 for the estate, and then there's only additional charges if there's something extraordinary. But the attorneys, I think, like to get the property sold, love to get the money into their account so that everybody gets paid, because when the asset's not sold, there's nothing good. Here's a rule in real estate. There's nothing good that happens from the day you list the property until the day it sells. Everything else is bad. And I remember, even when the market was red hot, one day COVID happened, and I had 28 pending escrows that all had to cancel because the court shut down. So there's nothing good that happens. Just because you don't see the bad thing coming doesn't mean that it's not. So, yeah. And so Jim says he thinks it's California and Hawaii that allow attorneys to do better if the state does better. I don't think that's quite that way, but again, it's negotiable. And in California, it's capped. So it might be the percentage based on the assets, but most attorneys, I find, most customers end up agreeing to a schedule of fees that's less than the caps, but that's not always the case. Okay, I think we're coming up on our hour. And Lena, I know I don't want to get charged for an extra hour with you. It's very expensive to have you. I'm just kidding. You're very generous with your time, Lena. I really appreciate so much you being here. And more than that, I think just your attitude of sharing. So thank you for you and Bowen, all you guys do. And thanks for participating in our Facebook group as well.
Of course. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
And if we get a hold of her, Lena Cervara is available at the Bowen Law Firm, and the website is Bowen LF, as in Bowen Law Firm, bowenlf.com. And they're also on our probate group in Facebook, so feel free to ask questions there. And I always say when you ask questions, make sure you put what state it is, and even better, state and city or county to get the right answer. But I find them answering questions all the time. And oftentimes I'll say, well, I'm not an attorney, but here's what I know. And they're an attorney that they can answer the question any way they feel fit. So thank you for being on there. And then get probate.cash, the program next Wednesday. I'd love to have you participate in that if you're interested as well. If you're watching this on the live stream on YouTube or Facebook, please like or subscribe if you want to see more. And then for those of you watching it on the social media, we do a live Zoom. You're able to come in live and ask questions. To register for the Zoom, just go to probateweekly.com. You can sign up. You'll get reminders, as well as automatically we'll send you a copy of the recording when we're done. So again, Lena, thank you on behalf of everybody. Really appreciate having you.
Thank you so much, Bill.
And say hi to both for me.
I will.
Okay, fantastic. Hey guys, thank you so much for being on the call today. Really appreciate your help. Randy, I know I was looking for you. I don't think you're on the call, but you talked to me ahead of time. No, you're not. Thanks everybody. Appreciate you guys. If you have any questions, call